The bright lights of Kepler Station hummed softly as Jake Martinez stepped off the transport ship. He carried a simple backpack and looked around with curious eyes. This was his first time so far from Earth, and everything looked different. The walls were smooth and white, and strange symbols glowed along the corridors. Other students walked past him, but they were not human. Jake saw a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms carrying what looked like 20 books. Another student had scales like a lizard and walked on 2 legs that bent backwards. A third looked like a giant insect with wings that buzzed quietly as it moved. Jake had read about other alien species, but seeing them in person was amazing. "Hey, you must be one of the humans," said a voice behind him. Jake turned and saw a girl with brown hair and green eyes. She wore the same gray uniform that Jake had been given. "Yeah, I'm Jake Martinez from Texas," he said with a smile. "You?" "Amy Collins from Oregon. I saw 2 more humans at the registration desk. Want to find them?" They walked through the station together. The place was huge, with high ceilings and wide hallways. Signs in different languages pointed to classrooms, labs, and living areas. Alien students moved in groups, talking in sounds that Jake's translator earpiece could barely understand. At the registration desk, they found Ryan Webb and Lisa Park. Ryan was a tall guy with blonde hair who looked like he worked on farms. Lisa was shorter with black hair and seemed very smart from the way she talked. They all shook hands and introduced themselves. "This is so cool," Lisa said, looking around. "I never thought I'd be studying with aliens. My family back in California won't believe this. My dad thinks I'm crazy for leaving the farm," Ryan laughed. "But he's proud too. I'm the first person from our town to go to space college." A loud sound came from speakers around the station. "All new students report to Hall 7 for orientation. All new students report to Hall 7 for orientation." The 4 humans followed signs and other students to a large room with hundreds of seats. The ceiling was very high and the walls showed pictures of different planets and stars. Students from many species sat in groups. Jake noticed that most aliens stayed with their own kind, but a few mixed groups talked quietly. A tall creature walked to the front of the room. It had crystal-like skin that reflected the lights and made rainbow colors. When it spoke, its voice was very careful and slow. "Welcome, students, to the Galactic Educational Consortium. I am Professor Velthar. For the next 4 years, you will study together, learn together, and grow together. But first, we must ensure your safety." Amy whispered to Jake. "Here comes the boring part." Professor Velthar touched a control panel and the lights dimmed. A large screen appeared showing pictures of the space station. "Safety is the most important thing in space. One small mistake can kill everyone on this station. That is why we will spend the next 3 days learning safety rules." Jake heard groans from some of the alien students, but they seemed ready to listen. The humans looked at each other with tired expressions. "First, we will learn about air systems," the professor continued. "The station creates air for us to breathe. If the air system breaks, we have only minutes to live. You must know where every emergency air mask is located." The screen showed pictures of air masks and how to use them. The professor explained every step very slowly. Jake had used similar masks during flight training on Earth. This seemed very basic to him. "Pay attention to every word," Professor Velthar said. "Your life depends on this knowledge." An alien student with green skin and big eyes raised a hand. "Professor, how often do air system failures happen?" "Very rarely, but when they do happen, only prepared students survive. We will practice air mask procedures for 2 hours today." Jake looked at his watch. They had been in orientation for 30 minutes, and the professor was still talking about air masks. Ryan was already looking bored. Lisa was reading something on her datapad, and Amy was drawing pictures in her notebook. The professor moved to the next topic. "Now we learn about walking safely in different gravity areas. The station has areas with Earth gravity, areas with low gravity, and areas with high gravity. Walking wrong can cause serious injury." A student that looked like a large bird asked, "What kind of injuries?" "Broken bones, torn muscles, damaged organs. Gravity is very dangerous if you do not respect it." The professor showed a video of proper walking techniques. "Always test the gravity in each room before walking normally. Take small steps until you know how strong the gravity is. Jake had grown up in Texas, where he climbed trees, rode horses, and played football. He had also trained in various gravity conditions before coming to the station. The idea of taking small, careful steps everywhere seemed strange to him. "We will practice safe walking for 3 hours," Professor Velthar announced. Amy raised her hand. "Professor, can we ask a question?" "Of course. We've already read all the safety manuals on our trip here. They were pretty straightforward. Could we maybe skip ahead to the actual class stuff? You know, the engineering and science parts?" The room became very quiet. Alien students stared at Amy with shocked expressions. A few made worried sounds that the translators could not understand. Professor Velthar's crystal skin changed colors quickly, which Jake guessed meant surprise or worry. "Skip safety training. No student has ever asked to skip safety training. Safety training is required. It protects your life." "We understand that," Jake said. "We just think we can handle it. The safety stuff isn't that complicated." More shocked, sounds from the alien students. A creature with tentacles instead of arms spoke up. "Not complicated? Safety training is the hardest part of space education. Most students need help to understand it." Lisa looked confused. "Really? It's just common sense stuff. Don't touch broken electrical things. Wear protective gear around dangerous chemicals. Know where the exits are. We learned this stuff as kids." The insect-like student buzzed loudly. "You learned dangerous chemical safety as children? What kind of world do you come from?" "Earth," Ryan said simply. "Where we're from, kids learn safety pretty early. You have to, or you don't make it to adulthood." Professor Velthar looked very worried now. "I think there has been a misunderstanding. We will continue with proper safety training. No exceptions." The humans looked at each other and shrugged. Jake whispered, "Guess we're stuck here for 3 days." "At least the other students seem nice," Amy whispered back. "Even if they're really worried about everything." Professor Velthar continued the presentation. For the next 6 hours, he explained basic safety rules. How to check if air was safe to breathe. How to identify dangerous chemicals by their labels. How to walk safely on wet floors. How to lift heavy objects without hurting your back. The alien students took careful notes and asked many questions. They wanted to know exact procedures for every possible situation. What if the lights went out? What if the floor was slippery? What if someone dropped something dangerous? The humans tried to pay attention, but it was hard. These were things they had learned before they were 10 years old. Jake had been in more dangerous situations just walking to school in bad weather. When the orientation finally ended, students began leaving for their rooms. The humans walked together, talking about their first day. "That was really long," Lisa said. "I hope tomorrow is more interesting. Those other students seem really scared of everything," Ryan observed. "I wonder what their home planets are like. Maybe they're just more careful than we are," Amy suggested. "Different cultures and all that." Behind them, groups of alien students walked quietly, occasionally looking back at the humans with expressions that might have been fear, confusion, or both. Jake didn't notice, but their casual attitude toward safety had already become the topic of serious discussion among their new classmates. The first day was over, but the real learning was just beginning. The second day of safety training began early in the morning. Jake woke up in his small room and looked out the window at the stars. He had slept well, but he could hear worried voices in the hallway. Other students were talking in their alien languages, and even through the translators, Jake could tell they sounded nervous. He met Amy, Ryan, and Lisa at the cafeteria for breakfast. The food was strange, but not bad. Jake had eaten worse things during camping trips back home. Amy tried something that looked like purple eggs, while Ryan ate what appeared to be green bread. Lisa studied her food carefully before eating, but not because she was worried about safety. She was just curious about alien cooking. At a nearby table, several alien students sat together. One looked like a fish with legs and arms. Jake remembered from yesterday that this was Zix Pol, an Aquarian student. She had gills on her neck and webbed fingers. She was writing notes in a waterproof notebook and seemed very serious about everything. Another student looked like a large insect with shiny black skin. This was Kreetak from the Hive Worlds. She made clicking sounds when she talked, which the translator turned into words. Her big eyes watched everything around her and she never seemed to relax. There was also a student with crystal skin like Professor Velthar, but smaller and younger. Her name was Silara, and she came from the Zentorian colonies. She moved, very carefully and slowly, as if she was afraid of breaking something. I wonder what their home planets are like, Lisa said quietly, looking at the alien students. Probably a lot safer than Earth, Ryan said with a laugh. Remember when we had to learn tornado safety in school? These guys would probably faint if they saw a real tornado. Amy nodded. Or earthquake drills. We did those every month. The alien students at the nearby table stopped talking and looked at the humans. Zixpol's large eyes grew even larger. Did you say earthquake safety? And tornado safety? These are real dangers on your world? Jake turned to face them. Oh yeah, all the time. We get tornadoes every spring where I'm from. Earthquakes happen on the West Coast pretty often. Amy's from California, she's felt lots of earthquakes. Amy shrugged. Not that big a deal once you know what to do. You just get under a desk or in a doorway and wait for it to stop. The alien students looked at each other with expressions that Jake couldn't read, but they seemed very concerned. Kreetak made rapid clicking sounds that the translator couldn't keep up with. You have moving ground on your planet? Silara asked, her crystal skin changing colors. How do you build anything? How do you live safely? You adapt, Ryan said simply. Build things stronger. Learn to read the signs. My family's farm has been hit by 3 tornadoes in my lifetime. We rebuilt each time and made it better. Your family home was destroyed 3 times by weather. Zixpol wrote this down in her notebook with shaking hands. And you rebuilt in the same dangerous place? Where else would we go? Lisa asked. Besides, you can't let weather run your life. Bad storms happen everywhere. Professor Velthar entered the cafeteria and announced that classes would begin in 15 minutes. The students finished eating and walked to the classroom. Jake noticed that the alien students stayed in their own groups and kept looking at the humans with worried expressions. The classroom was set up like a laboratory with tables full of equipment and chemicals. Professor Velthar stood at the front with several teaching assistants from different species. Today we learn about chemical safety, the professor announced. Working with chemicals is very dangerous. One mistake can cause burns, poisoning, or death. We will spend 4 hours learning proper procedures. The professor showed them different containers of chemicals. Most were marked with warning symbols that Jake recognized from high school chemistry class. There were acids, bases, and various solvents that could cause harm if not handled properly. First, we learn about protective equipment, Professor Velthar said. He showed them thick gloves, eye protection, and heavy aprons. You must wear full protection when working with any dangerous substance. Zixpol raised her webbed hand. Professor, how do we know if a substance is dangerous? Everything in this laboratory is dangerous, the professor replied. That is why we have very strict rules. Jake looked at the chemicals on display. Most of them were things he had used in high school. The acids were weak, the bases were common cleaning supplies, and the solvents were less dangerous than paint thinner. He had used stronger chemicals helping his dad fix cars. These don't look too bad, Ryan whispered to Jake. The acid is only pH 2. We used stronger stuff to clean rust off farm equipment. What did you say? Silara asked, overhearing. Just that these chemicals aren't too strong, Ryan explained. We've worked with more dangerous stuff back home. The alien student stared at him in shock. Kreetak made rapid clicking sounds again. You have used dangerous chemicals before? Professor Velthar asked. What kind of training did you receive? Well, my dad showed me how to use them safely, Ryan said. And we learned basic stuff in school. You know, read the labels, wear gloves, don't mix things you shouldn't mix. Common sense stuff. Your father taught you to use dangerous chemicals? Zixpol looked horrified. How old were you? I don't know, maybe 12 or 13? Old enough to be careful and follow directions. Amy nodded. I learned to use household chemicals even younger. My mom taught me how to clean with bleach and other stuff when I was maybe 10. Children on your world handle dangerous chemicals? Kretak's translator was having trouble keeping up with her rapid clicking. This is normal? Sure, Lisa said. How else would you learn? Besides, household chemicals aren't that dangerous if you're careful. Just don't drink them or mix them with other chemicals. Professor Velthar looked very worried. His crystal skin was changing colors rapidly. I think we need to review your background files more carefully. For now, we will continue with standard safety training. The lesson continued with very detailed instructions on how to put on protective equipment. The professor showed them how to check gloves for holes, how to adjust eye protection, and how to tie apron strings properly. Each step was explained multiple times. The alien students paid close attention and practiced each step carefully. They helped each other with the equipment and double-checked everything. Jake and his friends put on their equipment quickly and correctly, then waited for the others to finish. You learn very fast, Silara observed. Have you used this equipment before? Similar stuff, Amy said. It's not too different from what we used in school labs. Your schools have dangerous chemical laboratories? Zixpol asked while struggling with her gloves. High schools do, Jake said. We had chemistry class every day junior year. Used acids, bases, heat, electricity, all kinds of things. It was fun. Fun? Several alien students said this at the same time. Yeah, chemistry is cool, Lisa explained. You get to see reactions, make things change color, create new compounds. As long as you follow safety rules, it's not dangerous. The alien students exchanged looks that Jake was starting to recognize as worry mixed with confusion. Professor Velthar began the practical part of the lesson. Each table had simple experiments that required handling the mild chemicals they had seen earlier. The alien students worked very slowly and carefully, checking each step multiple times. They called for help from teaching assistants frequently. The human students worked at normal speed, following the safety rules but not seeming worried about the chemicals. Jake noticed that Lisa actually seemed excited about the experiments, like she was enjoying herself. This reminds me of making soap with my grandmother, Amy said as she mixed two harmless solutions. She taught me chemistry through cooking and cleaning. Your grandmother taught you chemistry? Silara asked from the next table. Not formal chemistry, but practical stuff. What happens when you mix different things? How heat changes reactions? Why some combinations are dangerous? Grandmothers know a lot about chemistry, even if they don't call it that. Zixpol stopped her experiment completely. Elderly people on your world handle dangerous chemicals? Well, yeah, Ryan said. Adults handle all kinds of chemicals. Cleaning supplies, car, maintenance, farming chemicals, paint, you name it. It's just part of life. Farming chemicals? Kretak's clicking became very rapid. You use chemicals to grow food? Fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, Ryan explained while continuing his experiment. You have to know what you're doing, but farmers use chemistry every day. My dad taught me to read chemical labels before I could read regular books very well. The alien students had stopped their experiments entirely. They were staring at the humans with expressions that Jake couldn't identify, but it definitely wasn't admiration. During the lunch break, Jake noticed that the alien students gathered in a large group and talked in excited voices. Even across the cafeteria, he could hear the concern in their various languages. They kept looking over at the human table and making gestures that seemed worried. I think we're making them nervous, Amy observed. Why? Lisa asked. We're being just as careful as they are. Maybe more careful, Ryan added. I've seen some of them make mistakes that could actually be dangerous. Jake looked over at the alien students again. They were having what looked like a very serious discussion. Week 2 arrived with real laboratory work and equipment training. The safety lectures were finally over and students could begin hands-on learning. Jake felt excited as he walked into the engineering lab. Real equipment, real projects, and real learning would begin today. The laboratory was huge, with workstations spread across the room. Each station had different types of machinery, tools, and materials. Jake saw metal cutting equipment, welding stations, chemical mixing apparatus, and electrical testing devices. Everything looked well-maintained and properly labeled with safety warnings. Professor Velthar stood at the front with 3 teaching assistants. Today you begin practical work. Remember everything you learned about safety. One careless moment can cause serious injury or death. The alien students nodded seriously and began checking their protective equipment. Zixpol had brought extra safety gear that she had purchased from the station store. Kretak buzzed nervously as she examined her workstation. Silara moved very slowly, touching each tool gently as if it might explode. Jake and his human friends put on their safety equipment and looked around the lab with interest. The tools were similar to things they had used before, just more advanced. Ryan recognized most of the metalworking equipment from his family's farm workshop. Amy had used similar chemical apparatus in her college classes back on Earth. Your first assignment, Professor Velthar announced, involves basic materials testing. You will work with mildly acidic solutions, heated metals, and pressurized containers. Follow all safety procedures exactly. He showed them the materials they would use. The acid had a pH of 3, which Jake knew was about as acidic as orange juice. The metals would be heated to 200 degrees Celsius, hot enough to cause burns but not extremely dangerous with proper care. The pressurized containers held 15 atmospheres of pressure, which was significant but manageable. These materials can cause severe injury if mishandled, the professor continued. Work slowly and carefully. Ask for help if you are unsure about anything. The alien students approached their workstations like they were handling explosives. They double-checked every safety procedure and moved with extreme caution. Zixpol spent 10 minutes just examining her acid container before opening it. Kretak called a teaching assistant over to confirm that her pressure gauge was reading correctly. The human students began working at a normal pace. They followed all safety rules but didn't seem worried about the materials. Jake heated his metal sample while chatting with Ryan about the weekend plans. Lisa mixed her acid solution while reading the next steps in the procedure. Amy was working with a pressurized container when the first incident happened. She was connecting a pressure line when her elbow bumped the container. It tipped over and rolled off the table, landing on the floor with a loud bang. The alien students immediately stopped working and looked toward Amy's station. Several of them backed away from their own equipment. Kretak's buzzing became very loud and rapid. Sorry about that, Amy said casually. She picked up the container and checked it for damage. No harm done. The pressure release valve worked like it's supposed to. You are not injured? Silara asked from across the room. Nah, it's fine. These containers are built to handle drops. My dad has pressurized tanks in his garage that have fallen off shelves plenty of times. Your father keeps pressurized containers in his personal workspace? Zixpol's gills fluttered rapidly, which Jake was learning meant she was very worried. Sure, compressed air for tools, propane for welding, that kind of thing. Pretty standard for any workshop. The alien students exchanged those worried looks again. Jake was getting used to seeing that expression whenever humans talked about normal life on Earth. The second incident happened an hour later. Ryan was heating a piece of metal when the temperature control malfunctioned. Instead of stopping at 200 degrees, the metal kept heating up to nearly 400 degrees. Red warning lights flashed on his equipment. The alien students at nearby stations immediately began evacuation procedures as they had been taught. They shut down their equipment and moved to designated safe areas. Several called for teaching assistance. Ryan simply turned off the power to his heating unit and used metal tongs to move the overheated piece to a cooling station. Equipment malfunction, he announced calmly. No big deal. The metal's just hotter than planned. You did not evacuate the area, one of the teaching assistants said, rushing over. Why would I evacuate? The metal is contained. The heating unit is off and I used proper tools to handle it. Everything's under control. But the safety protocol says to evacuate when warning lights activate. Ryan looked confused. The warning lights just mean the temperature is higher than programmed. They're not saying there's actual danger. Back home we get warning lights on farm equipment all the time. You just fix the problem and keep working. The teaching assistant made notes on a datapad while shaking his head. Around the room, alien students continued to stare at Ryan with expressions of amazement and fear. The biggest incident happened during the afternoon session. Lisa was working with chemical mixing equipment when a seal failed in one of the pressure lines. Acidic solution began spraying out in a fine mist, and pressure alarms sounded throughout the lab. This time, all the alien students immediately began full emergency procedures. They shut down every piece of equipment, activated emergency ventilation, and moved to the far end of the room. Some put on additional protective gear and prepared to call station security. Lisa looked at the spray of acid mist and calmly reached for a bottle of neutralizing solution. She sprayed it into the area where the acid was landing, turning the dangerous mist into harmless water and salt. Then she shut off the pressure line and began cleaning up the spill. "Lisa, are you all right?" Jake called from his workstation. "Yeah, just a seal failure. Reminds me of the time I spilled battery acid on my mom's car engine. This is actually easier to clean up." The room became completely silent. Even the humming of equipment seemed quieter. Every alien student was staring at Lisa with expressions that Jake was beginning to recognize as shock mixed with terror. "You have experience with battery acid spills?" Professor Velthar asked, his crystal skin cycling through several different colors rapidly. "Well, yeah. Car batteries leak acid sometimes. It's not fun, but it's not the end of the world either. You just neutralize it and clean it up." "And this happened to you as a child?" "I was maybe 16. Old enough to drive and help with car maintenance." Zixpol was writing frantically in her notebook. "Children on your world operate vehicles that contain dangerous chemicals. Cars aren't that dangerous if you know what you're doing," Amy explained. "Everyone learns to drive when they're teenagers. Part of that is learning basic maintenance and safety. What other dangerous activities do children do on your world?" Kretak asked, her clicking becoming rapid again. The humans looked at each other, not sure why this was such a big deal. "Normal stuff," Jake said. "Riding bikes, swimming, playing sports, climbing trees, camping, that sort of thing." "You climb tall structures for entertainment." Silara's crystal skin was flashing warning colors. "Trees aren't that tall," Ryan laughed. "Maybe 30 or 40 feet for the big ones. It's fun to see the view from up high." 40 feet above the ground, several alien students made sounds of distress. "What about swimming?" Lisa asked. "Do you guys not swim on your worlds?" "Swimming is done in controlled environments with safety equipment and trained supervisors," Zixpol explained. "Natural bodies of water contain dangerous currents, temperature variations, and predatory life forms." "Oh, we have those too," Amy said. "You just learn to watch out for them. I've been swimming in lakes and rivers since I was little. The ocean can be tricky, but it's amazing once you learn to read the waves and currents." "You enter natural water, bodies that contain predators?" Kretak's buzzing was so rapid that her translator was having trouble keeping up. "Well, yeah. Most fish aren't dangerous to humans. You just have to know which ones to avoid and where they like to hang out." The alien students were now having rapid conversations in their own languages. Even through the translators, Jake could tell they were very agitated. Several were taking detailed notes, and others were making what looked like sketches or diagrams. During the final hour of lab time, the humans continued their work normally while the alien students watched them carefully. Every normal action seemed to cause concern. When Jake casually moved a hot piece of metal, Silara flinched. When Amy mixed two chemicals without extensive preparation, Zixpol's gills fluttered wildly. The strangest moment came when Ryan volunteered to demonstrate proper use of a hydraulic press. The machine used high pressure to shape metal, and it was considered one of the more dangerous pieces of equipment in the lab. Ryan operated the press smoothly and efficiently, explaining each step as he worked. "You just need to keep your hands clear of the pressure points and make sure the metal is properly positioned. It's not much different from the hydraulic equipment we use on the farm." "You have used similar equipment before?" Professor Velthar asked. "Sure, hydraulic lifts for heavy machinery, log splitters, that kind of thing. Hydraulics are pretty common for farm work." "And you learned this as a child?" That evening, Zixpol sat in her room staring at her notebook full of observations about the human students. She had filled 20 pages with notes about their behavior, and none of it made sense. How could any species be so casual about danger? How could children from their world handle chemicals and machinery that required extensive training for civilized species? She decided she needed answers. Zixpol activated her room's computer terminal and accessed the galactic database. She would research Earth and find out what kind of world produced such reckless beings. At the same time, across the station, Kretak was having similar thoughts. Her insectoid mind was excellent at gathering and analyzing information. The humans disturbed her because they didn't fit any pattern she understood. Dangerous activities seemed normal to them. Things that should cause fear appeared to be entertainment. Kretak also accessed the database and began searching for information about the human homeworld. She was joined by Silara, who had been unable to sleep after seeing humans handle laboratory equipment with such frightening confidence. The three alien students, working separately, began to discover the truth about Earth. Zixpol typed Earth into the database search function. The first result that appeared made her gills stop moving entirely. She read the line again to make sure she understood correctly. Planet classification, Class 12 Death World. Extreme hazard rating, unsuitable for most known species. Class 12 Death World. Zixpol had never heard of a classification that high. Most inhabited planets were Class 1 or Class 2, meaning they were safe and comfortable. Class 3 worlds required some environmental protection. She had heard of Class 5 worlds that were considered dangerous frontier planets. But Class 12? She didn't even know the classification system went that high. She clicked on the detailed report and began reading. What she found made her webbed hands shake. Earth experiences frequent seismic activity across multiple tectonic plates. Surface earthquakes are common, with major events capable of destroying large structures occurring regularly. Zixpol thought about Amy's casual comment about earthquake drills in school. These humans lived on a world where the ground moved violently enough to destroy buildings, and they taught their children how to survive it as a normal part of education. Atmospheric composition includes 21% oxygen, creating a highly reactive and potentially combustible environment. The air itself was dangerous. Zixpol's homeworld had only 8% oxygen, and even that required careful monitoring. Earth's atmosphere could literally explode under the right conditions, yet humans breathed it every day without protection. Weather systems regularly produce destructive storms with wind speeds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour. Cyclonic storms, known locally as hurricanes and tornadoes, can level entire communities. Ryan's mention of tornado safety suddenly took on a new meaning. These weren't just strong winds. These were rotating storms that could destroy anything in their path, and humans built their homes in areas where such storms occurred regularly. Meanwhile, Kretak was discovering equally disturbing information. Her insectoid mind processed data quickly, and what she was learning about Earth's biological environment horrified her. Planet supports numerous large predatory species. Apex predators include mammals weighing up to 300 kilograms with powerful jaws and claws. 300 kilograms. That was larger than most sentient species she knew. And these were just the normal animals that lived on Earth, not mythical creatures or extinct species. Marine environment contains predatory fish species up to 6 meters in length, equipped with multiple rows of razor-sharp teeth. Lisa had mentioned swimming in natural water bodies for fun. She was talking about entering the same environment as 6-meter predators with teeth designed to tear flesh, voluntarily, for entertainment. Historical records indicate humans developed as persistence hunters, capable of tracking prey across vast distances. Natural human endurance exceeds most known species. Kretak clicked rapidly as she processed this information. Humans were evolved predators. They had developed the ability to chase other animals until those animals collapsed from exhaustion. No wonder they seemed so fearless in laboratory situations. Their species had evolved to be dangerous. Silara, reading from her crystal-based computer interface, was learning about Earth's astronomical environment. Planet orbits a G-type star at close range, receiving intense radiation, including harmful ultraviolet light. Surface radiation levels would require protective equipment for most species. The sun itself was trying to kill everything on Earth. Humans lived under a star that bombarded them with dangerous radiation every day. Silara's homeworld orbited a much cooler star at a safe distance. Her people needed artificial light to survive, while humans lived under a radiation source that would require protective equipment for most other species. Gravitational field measures 9.8 meters per second squared, approximately 3 times the galactic standard for inhabited worlds. 3 times normal gravity. Silara's crystal bones would shatter under that kind of pressure. Humans had evolved in gravity that would crush most civilized species, which explained their incredible physical strength and casual attitude toward heavy equipment. Planet lacks natural electromagnetic shielding in many regions, allowing cosmic radiation to reach the surface. Even space was trying to kill things on Earth. Cosmic rays that would require shielded facilities on most worlds hit the surface regularly. Humans lived their entire lives exposed to radiation from both their sun and deep space. The 3 alien students continued reading through the night, each discovering new horrors about the human homeworld. As the hours passed, they began to understand why their human classmates seemed so unconcerned about laboratory safety. Zixpol learned about something called extreme sports that humans did for fun. Jumping from high places with only fabric parachutes to slow their fall, descending into deep caves where they could become lost or trapped, climbing vertical rock faces hundreds of meters high using only their hands and feet. These weren't survival activities. These weren't job requirements. Humans voluntarily sought out dangerous situations and called them entertainment. Kretak discovered that human children were expected to learn swimming, often in natural water bodies, not just swimming pools with controlled conditions, but lakes and oceans where they might encounter predators, underwater obstacles, or dangerous currents. Human children regularly played in environments that would require military-grade protective equipment for most species. Silara read about human occupational safety standards and nearly overloaded her translation software. What humans considered acceptable workplace risk was categorized as extreme hazard conditions requiring specialized military equipment by galactic safety standards. Construction workers on Earth regularly worked at heights that would terrify most space-capable species. Miners descended into underground environments that most civilized worlds would classify as too dangerous for any activity. Emergency responders deliberately entered burning buildings, toxic environments, and natural disaster zones as part of their normal duties. As dawn approached on the station, the 3 alien students met in Zixpol's room to share what they had learned. They spread out their research and tried to understand how such a world could produce a sentient species. Their entire planet is trying to kill them, Silara said, her crystal skin flickering with stress patterns. The ground moves, the sky burns them, the air can explode, and the animals hunt them. And they call it home, Zixpol added, looking at her notes about human recreational activities. They do dangerous things for fun because their normal environment is already more dangerous than emergency conditions on our worlds. We need to tell the others. Kretak clicked rapidly. Everyone should know what we've discovered. They sent messages to other alien students requesting an emergency meeting. Within an hour, 12 students from different species had gathered in the station's common area. Word spread quickly through the alien student population. Zixpol stood up to address the group. We have researched the human homeworld. What we found explains their behavior, but it also raises new concerns. She activated a wall display and showed them Earth's classification. Class 12 Deathworld, the highest danger rating in the galactic database. Shocked sounds came from the assembled students in a dozen different languages. The humans are not being reckless, Silara explained. They are applying safety standards developed on a world where staying alive requires constant adaptation to lethal conditions. Kretak added her findings about human evolution and biology. They developed as persistence predators in an environment where everything is dangerous. What we consider extreme hazards, they consider normal background conditions. A student from the Peaceful Harmony worlds asked, "Should we be afraid of them?" "Not afraid," Zixpol said carefully. "But we should understand them. When Jake Martinez handles equipment that makes us nervous, he's applying safety instincts developed by millions of years of evolution on a world where survival requires split-second decisions about deadly situations. When Amy Collins cleans, Up chemical spills without calling for emergency assistance, Silara continued. She's using skills learned in an environment where chemicals more dangerous than anything in our laboratory are part of daily life. The news about Earth spread through the alien student population like wildfire. By the next morning, every non-human student on Kepler Station knew that their human classmates came from a Class 12 death world. The revelation changed everything, about how they looked at Jake, Amy, Ryan, and Lisa. During breakfast, the humans noticed that their alien classmates were acting differently. Instead of the worried looks they had been getting, now the aliens watched them with something that looked like amazement mixed with respect. Some even seemed a little afraid to get too close. "Is it just me, or are they being weird again?" Amy whispered to Jake as they sat down with their food. "Different kind of weird, though," Ryan observed. "Before they looked at us like we were crazy. Now they look at us like we might bite them." Lisa noticed that Zixpol was sitting alone at a nearby table writing in her notebook but occasionally glancing over at the humans. "Maybe we should ask what's going on." Jake walked over to Zixpol's table. "Hey, mind if we sit with you? You look like you're working on something interesting." Zixpol's gills fluttered rapidly, but she nodded. "Please, sit down. I was actually hoping to talk with you." The four humans joined her at the table. Zixpol seemed nervous but also curious, like she wanted to ask questions, but wasn't sure how. "We researched your homeworld last night," she said, finally. "Earth. Oh, cool," Amy said. "What did you find out?" "Your planet is classified as a Class 12 death world," Zixpol said quietly. "The highest danger rating in our database." The humans looked at each other with confused expressions. "Is that bad?" Jake asked. "Bad?" Zixpol's eyes grew wide. "Jake, most inhabited worlds are Class 1 or Class 2. My homeworld is Class 2, and we consider that perfectly safe. Class 5 worlds require environmental protection. I have never heard of anyone living on a world rated higher than Class 8. What makes Earth so dangerous?" Lisa asked, genuinely curious. Zixpol opened her notebook and began reading. "Frequent seismic activity that can destroy buildings. Violent weather systems with winds over 200 kilometers per hour. Dangerous atmospheric composition. Intense solar radiation. Gravity 3 times galactic standard. Large predatory animals, toxic plants, poisonous insects. Extreme temperature variations." She looked up at the humans. "And that's just the beginning of the list." Ryan laughed. "When you put it like that, it does sound pretty rough. But it's home, you know. You adapt to whatever conditions you grow up with." "Adapt?" Kretak had approached their table and was listening to the conversation. "Ryan, your species didn't just adapt. You thrived. You became the apex predator on a world full of apex predators." "We're not really predators," Amy protested. "Most humans eat plants and animals, but we don't hunt much anymore. Your ancestors were persistence hunters." Kretak's clicking was rapid but excited rather than worried. "You evolved to chase prey animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. Your endurance capabilities exceed most known species. I guess that explains why humans are good at long-distance running," Lisa said thoughtfully. More alien students were gathering around their table now, drawn by the conversation. Silara joined the group, her crystal skin flickering with what Jake was. Learning meant intense interest. "We understand now why you seem so unconcerned about laboratory safety," Silara said. "The equipment we use in class is less dangerous than your normal childhood environment." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "The acids we work with in chemistry lab have a pH of 3, Zixpol explained. You mentioned battery acid, which has a pH of 1. The pressurized containers we use hold 15 atmospheres. You talked about equipment on your family farm that operates at higher pressures. The heated metals we work with reach 200 degrees Celsius, Silara added. Your cooking fires reach higher temperatures, Amy started to understand. So what seems dangerous to you guys is actually pretty mild compared to stuff we deal with at home. Exactly, Kretak clicked. When you handle laboratory equipment without apparent fear, you're not being reckless. You're applying safety instincts developed on a world where everything is more dangerous than our most hazardous experimental conditions. Word of the conversation spread quickly through the student population. By lunchtime, Nearly every alien student on the station wanted to hear about life on Earth. The humans found themselves surrounded by curious classmates asking questions about their homeworld. "Is it true that your planet has storms that can destroy entire cities?" asked a student with feathers and a beak. "Hurricanes and tornadoes can be pretty destructive," Ryan admitted, "but people have learned to build stronger buildings and predict when storms are coming. Most of the time, everyone stays safe." "What about the predatory animals?" asked another student with fur and large ears. "How do you survive with creatures that hunt humans?" "Most animals don't hunt humans," Lisa explained. "We're too big and not worth the trouble for most predators. Plus, humans are pretty good at avoiding dangerous animals when we need to." "Do children really learn to swim in water bodies that contain predators?" Zixpol asked. "Well, yeah," Amy said. "But you learn to recognize dangerous situations. Don't swim alone. Avoid areas where dangerous animals might be. Stay close to shore if you're not a strong swimmer. It's not that scary when you know what you're doing." The questions continued throughout lunch. The alien students wanted to know about everything from human recreational activities to occupational safety standards. Each answer revealed new aspects of life on Earth that amazed and sometimes frightened their classmates. "You climb mountains for fun?" asked a student with tentacles instead of arms. "Some people do," Jake said. "It's challenging and the views are amazing, plus it's good exercise." "You enter burning buildings to rescue people?" asked another student. "Firefighters do," Ryan explained. "They have special equipment and training. It's dangerous work, but someone has to do it when people are in trouble." "Your athletes deliberately collide with each other at high speed?" asked Silara. "Football can get pretty intense," Amy laughed. "But players wear protective gear and follow rules to minimize injuries. It's actually safer than it looks." The afternoon brought the most important test of their new understanding. The students were scheduled for final practical examinations in the engineering laboratory. This would be their most complex project yet, involving multiple hazardous systems working together. Professor Velthar explained the assignment. "You will work in mixed teams to design and build a small atmospheric processor. This device will combine chemical reactions, high-pressure systems, electrical components, and thermal regulation. It requires precise coordination and absolute attention to safety." The alien students looked nervous about the complexity of the project. Working with multiple dangerous systems simultaneously was challenging even for advanced students. But now they understood why the humans seemed calm about the assignment. "Would you like to work with us?" Zixpol asked Jake. "We could learn from your experience with dangerous equipment." "Sure," Jake said. "But you guys probably know more about the theory than we do. We can handle the practical stuff and you can help with the technical details." Teams formed naturally with humans and aliens working together. For the first time since the exchange program began, the species were truly collaborating instead of just studying in the same room. The work went better than anyone expected. The alien students contributed their careful attention to detail and deep understanding of scientific principles. The humans provided practical skills and calm confidence when working with hazardous materials. Amy's team successfully built their atmospheric processor without any safety incidents. When a pressure seal began to leak, she quickly shut down the ER system and replaced the faulty component, while her alien teammates took notes on her troubleshooting process. Ryan's team encountered an electrical problem that could have been dangerous. Instead of calling for help immediately, Ryan traced the problem to a loose connection and fixed it safely, while explaining each step to his fascinated teammates. Lisa's team had the most complex design, but she coordinated the assembly process smoothly. When they needed to work with high-temperature components, she demonstrated proper safety techniques that impressed even the teaching assistants. Jake's team finished first and volunteered to help other teams with their projects. He moved confidently between workstations, offering advice and assistance while maintaining proper safety protocols. Professor Velthar watched the collaboration with growing amazement. The mixed teams were working more efficiently and safely than either species had managed alone. The humans provided practical skills and crisis management abilities, while the aliens contributed careful planning and technical knowledge. When the lab session ended, all teams had successfully completed their projects. More importantly, The alien students had gained a new appreciation for human capabilities, while the humans had learned to value their classmates' careful approach to safety. "I understand now," Zixpol said as they cleaned up their workstation. "You don't skip safety lessons because you're careless. You skip them because you've been attending a much harder safety course your entire lives." "What do you mean?" Amy asked. "Earth," Cilara explained, her crystal skin glowing with understanding.